Systemic racism is like, well, a hidden rule in our society. It's an invisible force that shapes the way we live, often without us even realizing it. It disadvantages one group of people while giving advantages to another. This means that some people get a head start while others are left behind, struggling to catch up. This isn't always about individual prejudice, it's more about the collective impact of policies and practices that have been in place for years, even centuries. It's about how systems and institutions are set up. These structures can perpetuate inequality, making it hard for marginalized groups to succeed. Imagine a game rigged from the start. That's systemic racism. The rules are set in a way that some players have an unfair advantage right from the beginning. This unfairness happens in many areas like housing, education, and even healthcare. These are essential parts of life where inequality can have long-lasting effects. It's not always obvious, but it deeply impacts the lives of people of color. The effects can be subtle, yet they accumulate over time, creating significant barriers. Understanding this hidden rule is crucial to creating a fair and equal society for everyone. By recognizing and addressing systemic racism, we can work towards a more just world. Let's look at some examples from history to understand this better. These examples highlight the deep-rooted issues of systemic racism that have shaped the social and economic landscape of the United States. Jim Crow laws enforced in the southern United States after the Civil War were a blatant example of systemic racism. These laws were designed to maintain white supremacy and control over black populations. These laws segregated black people, denying them equal access to public facilities, transportation, and even the right to vote. Public schools, restrooms, and even drinking fountains were divided by race. Another example is redlining. This discriminatory practice, prevalent in the 20th century, denied financial services to residents of certain neighborhoods based on their race. It was a systematic way to enforce racial segregation and economic disparity. Lenders would literally draw red lines on maps around predominantly black communities, deeming them too risky for loans. This practice was not just limited to housing, but also affected businesses and other financial opportunities. This prevented black families from buying homes in certain areas and building wealth. The long-term effects of redlining have contributed to the wealth gap and economic inequality that persists to this day. Think about the game Monopoly. Imagine playing a game of Monopoly where some players get to keep all their money and properties from a previous game and start the new game a few spaces ahead. Meanwhile, other players have to start from scratch every time, with no money or properties. This makes it much harder for the new players to catch up and win. Systemic racism works similarly by giving some groups advantages that last over time, while other groups face disadvantages, making it hard for them to succeed. Section 4. The legacy of systemic racism. The effects of these historical injustices are still felt today, manifesting in various aspects of daily life. Many black families are still grappling with the consequences of redlining, a discriminatory practice that denied them access to mortgages and home ownership. They often live in neighborhoods with fewer resources like quality schools, healthcare facilities, and even basic infrastructure. The wealth gap between black and white families is a direct result of these past practices, perpetuating economic disparities. Systemic racism is like a chain passed down through generations, affecting opportunities and quality of life. Breaking this chain requires acknowledging its existence, understanding its deep roots, and taking active steps to dismantle it through policy changes and community efforts. Section 5. Acknowledging and addressing inequality. We must acknowledge the reality of systemic racism. It's not enough to simply be non-racist. We need to actively work towards dismantling the systems that perpetuate inequality. This means advocating for policies that promote equality in all aspects of life. We need to support organizations fighting for social justice and challenge racist attitudes and behaviors wherever we encounter them. By working together, we can create a fairer and more just society for all. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to the video to spread awareness and support the cause.